Okay, so we're continuing with step 5 here, going on to example number 3, which is a little bit less complicated than example number 2. And just as before, I'm going to create one text box and I'm going to make it pretty wide, where I'm going to put my evaluations of all of these premises. I'm going to give it the heading Acceptability. And of course, I don't have to restate the premises. I just use the numbers so I know what they're referring to. And again, I'm going to start here on the bottom, work my way up to the top, not evaluating the conclusion. These are only tools for evaluating the premises. So let's start with number 2. The vast majority of serial rapists are also major consumers of pornography, and I'm going to deem that acceptable. I have done some research on this topic, and I remember reading that many serial rapists also consume large amounts of pornography. Okay, notice that I have both made a judgment and then backed it up. Now, I can't remember at this very moment exactly which sources I used to get at that understanding, but I'm pretty confident that I rely on high quality sources, and that's sufficient for me to accept this premise. Let's go on to the next one. 3. These rapists often act out scenes that they have witnessed in pornography videos or texts. I'm thinking about that. I'm going to say that's provisionally acceptable. I don't remember anything in my research that made that specific claim, although it seems reasonable to me that if rapists are viewing large amounts of pornography, that they may get some ideas for the kinds of assaults that they want to commit. So I'm going to say, although I don't remember this fact from any of my previous research, it seems reasonable, and I don't have any specific reason to disbelieve it. However, I would need to do additional research to actually accept it. Okay? Can't use the tool of provisional acceptability as a way out, as an excuse not to make a judgment. It's appropriate in very specific cases. This is a good one. Now I'm going to go up the argument to premise number 4. Pornography makes people into violent criminals. I'm going to say that's unacceptable, because I happen to know that pornography is widely used throughout our culture. It's not some tiny subsection of the population that uses pornography, and yet the vast majority of the population are not violent criminals. So I disagree with that claim, and I'm going to basically rephrase what I just said. Pornography is widely used throughout our culture by many people who are not violent criminals. If pornography did make people into violent criminals, there we would have a lot more violent criminals walking the streets. Something like that. I could make that prettier if I wanted to take the time to do so. Let's go on to premise number 5. It's an unstated premise, but you'll remember that unstated premises are treated identically as stated premises. Okay, so I'm just going to look at it as another claim. Anything that makes people into violent criminals ought to be banned. I find that a pretty confusing claim. What does it mean to say that something makes people into violent criminals? Does that mean it's the only cause? It's the primary cause? Does that mean we can always figure out what makes people into violent criminals? Are there certain things that could make people into violent criminals that are not really able to be banned? Poverty, some medications that may be very appropriate in certain cases but may have unexpected side effects in certain individuals. But we're not going to ban the medications entirely, although we might regulate them. So I find this claim just too broad and too vague to accept it. I'll say unacceptable. This claim implies cause and effect relation between some things and being a violent criminal that is unclear. Most likely, the causes of violent criminal actions are many, and not all of the causes could be banned. For example, poverty might be a cause, but it's impossible to ban poverty. So to say that all things that make people into violent criminals should be banned doesn't make sense. Okay? Good. Now there are 4 premises. I've looked at each one individually. Again, with acceptability, the accuracy of the diagram is not really relevant. You're just doing them one by one independently of each other, even though if in the diagram they are linked, they are dependent. So I think that's good.